Let's go.
A very good morning to everyone. Before we start with today's webinar, I request the college anthem to be played. A very good morning to everyone. Before we start with today's webinar, I request the college anthem to be played. A very good morning to everyone. Before we start with today's webinar, I request the college anthem to be played. Thank you. Our college was re-accredited by NAC with A grade and a CGPA of 3.32. We are an ISO 9001-2015 certified institute. Our college has been recently placed in the 5th rank in Maharashtra and 33rd rank among all other autonomous colleges of India by a survey of Education World, a national level magazine. With this brief, I request the introductory video about our college to be played. Thank you. Why, what, where, when, how? Questions are endless. And we Indians are a curious lot, always questioning. However, for research, pertinent questions that can lead to analysis and interpretation are required. And so, to answer all questions about questions, we have today's resource person, Dr. Kevin. I request Dr. Bharat Pithadia to introduce and welcome the resource person of today. Bharat, sir.
Kavita. Good morning to one and all. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Kevin, a friend and well-wisher of our college. Dr. Kevin is the former Pro Vice Chancellor of the University of Kerala. He has also held various positions as a director and in some other capacity with some institutes. He is also a PhD guide and author of many books. However, despite his various achievements and accomplishments, Dr. Kevin is at heart a simple hearted teacher who loves being with the students in the classroom. You will understand and you will get proof of this when he conducts this class. Finally, I have had a good fortune of listening to Dr. Kevin number of times, and every time I've learned something new. And today also, I'm sure he will do the same thing. His simple and lucid way of teaching ensures that you have completely understood the most difficult concept. With these few words, and with eagerness to listen to Sir again. Now I request Kevin Sir to take over. Over to Kevin Sir. Thank you.
Good morning, all of you. Thank you for the introduction. Before I start my presentation, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Dr. Nancy Jose, the principal of the college, for inviting me to participate in this webinar, which is well organized and well attended with a large number of participants. So I'm really delighted to be part of this webinar. Secondly, I would also like to express my sincere gratitude to the convener, Dr. Varsha Annapure, who has been constantly interacting with me, giving me the details about the program. And my sincere gratitude to Dr. Kavita Kalkoti, who is the organizing secretary, I understand. She has also been communicating with me the details of the program even today morning. So thanks to the organizers for keeping me comfortable with the schedule and the program details. This your college is very familiar to me. I have come there several times, and your principal is a good friend of mine. So I, in fact, miss the visit to your college, but unfortunately we cannot do that. So we have this webinar. So I think I will start my presentation.
So do you need any help? Share screen.
Yeah, the presentation slide is, I mean, that where do I, let me see. The prompt for presentation is not appearing. Okay, now it has come. Is the presentation slide visible?
No, sir.
Is it visible?
No, sir, we can't see it.
Sir, click on the screen share button, sir. Share screen button.
Share screen. We have started sharing screen, Shriram.
Participants, there's some technical issue. We will soon sort it out. Please wait.
Okay.
How can I help you?
Now, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you clearly. Can you
Okay.
share screen? Can you
Yeah,
open
I'm going to share the screen.
Yes, please.
In between, the connection was lost.
Okay, no issues. Can you see your PowerPoint for yourself?
No, I'm taking it.
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm going to share it.
Yes, please.
Can you now see?
No, I can't. Just click on the share screen.
Yeah. I've clicked it. Okay. One
It's a
second.
bottom line center button.
Yeah, yeah.
It's in
Share
green
screen.
color. Yeah.
Yes.
Please click on it.
Okay. One second.
Yes, we can see your screen, sir. Open the slide now.
Okay.
Wonderful.
Now you can
Yes.
see it.
Yes, very well. You can start, sir.
Okay, so we are going to see about questionnaire. Yesterday we had a presentation on literature review. In fact, research has different processes or different stages through which a researcher passes. The first stage, he formulates the problem, then he does his literature review, then he moves on to find out what are the variables and so on. So the different stages of the research process. One of the important stages is the preparation of the questionnaire. Then after collecting the data, you have to do the analysis, then write the research report. So each stage of the research has its own importance, its own difficulties, its own challenges, and its own ways of doing. Questionnaire. Today we are going to see one of the important processes of the research, which is the preparation of the questionnaire. This questionnaire is a research tool for primary data collection. All of you know what is a primary data collection. We collect the data directly from the respondents of the study. The importance of the questionnaire is the quality of the research depends upon the reliability and validity of the tool. So we collect the data through the questionnaire, we get some data. If the data is not reliable, if the data is not valid, then the analysis that we do is a waste of time. Because if you do analysis, you will get some result. But the quality of the result depends upon the quality of the data that you put into the analysis. And the quality of the data depends upon the quality of the questionnaire through which you collected the data. Therefore, the questionnaire, the quality of the questionnaire is very, very important for the result of the research. That is why we are concentrating today. We are going to concentrate on how to prepare. So what we want to do is how to prepare a good questionnaire, which will give us reliable, valid data for our analysis. This is the objective of today's session. Before I start the session, let me give you an example. There was a survey called Best Cities Survey by a very prominent Indian newspaper. I do not want to mention the name of the newspaper. They tried to find out which are the best cities in India through a questionnaire distributed to the newspaper readers. One of the questions related to the physical infrastructure of the cities. How would you rate your city in comparison to other cities in India on these parameters? This is the question, simple question, and there is a scale. The measurement scale is very good, 5, good 4, average, poor, very poor. So simple question you have to answer where your city is very good in comparison to other cities. So how do you rate your city in comparison to other cities in India? The parameters are listed below. 1, power, electricity situation, pipe to water facility, public transport facilities, traffic situation, and parking facilities in the city. So the participants kindly try to fill up. Take, for example, you take the power electricity situation in your city and try to compare it with other cities in India and give a measure. Either put it as 5 or 4 or 3 or 2. Now, when you try to fill up, let us say this was given to people in Bangalore city. Supposing this questionnaire was given to 100 people in Bangalore city. And so naturally they would be trying to rate Bangalore city, that is their city. How would you rate your city, that is Bangalore city, in comparison to other cities in India? Now here is a problem. The first person would compare Bangalore with which city? He may compare it with Mumbai, he may compare it with Delhi, he may compare it with say Cochin, Calcutta, Jaipur, wherever he has visited. The second person may compare Bangalore with another city. The third person may compare the Bangalore city with another city. So the result that you get, the comparison that you make is Bangalore with different cities. So it is not measurable. What I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to point out a defect in the question. Which is a good question. They wanted the data, but the way it was framed, the question, the way it was framed will not give you comparable data or valid data, as I said earlier, reliable, valid data for your analysis. So a very prominent Indian newspaper, if they can make a mistake, we can also make a lot of mistakes in preparing our questionnaire. So we have to be extremely careful in preparing our questionnaire. Therefore, we have to study the important points in preparing the questionnaire. So what actually should have been done here is that they should have put a benchmark. The benchmark should have been identified. They could have put the, instead of other cities, how would you rate your city in comparison to other cities? They could have put a benchmark there, either say Mumbai. So only those who have gone to Mumbai would compare Bangalore with Mumbai, or put it as some other city, Mysore, some other city. So then the comparison would be, all the 100 people would be doing the same type of comparison and the data would be valid. Okay, so I'm just giving an example to show you that there are many pitfalls in the process of developing a reliable, valid questionnaire. Okay, let us move forward. A questionnaire has 4 important dimensions. The first dimension is the context of the questionnaire. We are collecting the questionnaire from some respondents, and these respondents determine the context. Supposing our study is about banks, the performance of banks or the performance of loans, default, then the respondents would be people who have dealings with the banks. And therefore, our questions would be related to the respondents and the subject of study. So that is the context in which the questionnaire is prepared. Therefore, all the questions would be relating to the context. In other words, it is the background in which the questionnaire is prepared. It's not very important. It depends upon your topic of study. This is important. The second dimension of a questionnaire is the content. What is included in the questionnaire? What are the information that is collected through the questionnaire? You may have 100 questions, you may have 200 questions. So each question refers to some information. So that information is the content of the questionnaire. And that is derived from the literature survey and theoretical framework of your study. So your study, many people have already done the study. Yesterday, you have heard a lecture on literature survey, literature review. So when you do your literature survey, you will get a lot of information. What are the information that you should get from the respondents? When you do your theoretical study, the study will definitely have some theoretical background. So when you are doing your study, what is the theoretical background? So you get information about what to include in the questionnaire. Third dimension of a questionnaire is how to frame the questions. You want some information, and you know you got the what you want, the information that you require, you collected from your literature survey and theoretical framework. Now you have to convert these informations into questions in a proper way to get the right answer. That is known as the configuration of the question, how to frame the questions. This is going to influence the data analysis, because if you frame the question if you do not frame the question in the proper way, when you do your data analysis, you will not be able to properly analyze the data. So this is going to influence your data analysis. So you have to be careful about it. And the last is the quality of the questionnaire. That is the reliability and validity of the questionnaire. How far your questions are reliable and valid. So these are the 4 things that we are going to see today, one by one. Let us move on to the next topic, the context. Survey constitute the principal source of primary data in the social science research. In social science, we collect the data through a survey. And what is a survey? A survey is a fact-finding study. We are trying to find out certain facts about a problem. Or we say a field study. We go to the field, meet the respondents, and collect data from them. A representative sample of the population is selected for the survey. We don't study the whole population. We study a representative sample of the population. This survey will cover a wide range of subjects. We start with some demographic characteristics of the respondents. We ask them something about their social conditions, economic conditions. We then move on to 2 important things: people's opinions and attitudes, people's behaviors and activities. Because our study is a social science research, we are dealing with people. And definitely, people have opinions, attitudes, they have their behavior patterns, their activities. So we have to find out these things. Now, here is the problem. Demographic characteristics are easy to determine and find out. Social conditions, economic conditions are, some of them are visible, but people's opinions and attitudes, people's behaviors and activities, they are hidden. They are in the minds of the people. So how do you find out what is the attitude of a person, which is not visible? What is the opinion of a person? It is not visible. It is in his mind. So we have to find out, extract from him, what is his opinion towards something, what is his attitude towards something, what is his behavior with regard to something. So these, the last two things, it is extremely difficult to find out. So how do we extract this information? We will be seeing shortly. We'll be seeing how to find out these last two things. We have to do some preparation before we actually sit down to start the questionnaire, preparing the questionnaire. The first step is we have to list out the information that we need. What is the type of information we need? What are the different types of information that we need? We have to list out those. Then we have to convert them into questions configuration. The first one is content, the second one is configuration. Then we have to sequence the questions into a logical order so that he will feel, the respondent doesn't feel any strain in filling up the questionnaire. We start with simple questions. We call it funnel method, where we start with general, broad, simple questions, followed by specific questions, then the difficult questions about his attitudes, behaviors, opinions, and so on. Then we do a pilot study to find out whether our questionnaire is actually, we are asking the right things to the right, in the right way. Then based on the pilot study, we can make some modifications. And finally, the draft, final draft for distribution among the respondents would be ready. So, prelude to the questionnaire preparation. We have to do a very careful survey of literature. Yesterday you saw that, how to prepare it. It's a very important step, this literature survey. In fact, many researchers take it very lightly, do not consider it very significant. In fact, it is very serious, very significant. So from here, it is from here that we get the contents to be included in our questionnaire. So this is
Participants, I think Dr. Kevin is having issues with the network. We will get back to you soon.
Okay, can you see?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, we can see you.
Audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm going to continue the presentation. Okay.
Yes, sir, please.
Can you see?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So we are seeing the prelude to the questionnaire preparation. The first step, as I said, was the careful survey of literature. Second step is important, the conceptualization of the study. That is the identification of the variables and their relationships. So in every study, what we are doing is we will have certain variables, and we will be studying the relationship or the differences between these types of variables. So what are the variables to be studied in our study? We will get it from the literature survey theoretical framework, and we have to identify the variables. That this is the most important step in the literature, in the questionnaire preparation, identification of the variables and their relationships. And this, I will explain this step further. That is, we are going to deal with the next part is the second dimension of the questionnaire, which is the content of the questionnaire, what is to be included in the questionnaire. The questions will be relating to the different types of variables that we are going to study. The questionnaire seeks information on the different types of variables related to the study. Now, the variables may be objective or they may be subjective. Objective means relating to the object, that is the income, the marital status, the gender, residential status. And as you can see, these are things, most of these are visible. So we can find out whether the person is answering the correct question. By looking around, we will be able to identify whether the answers are true given by the respondent. Now, the second type of variables are subjective variables, which are within the subject, related to the subject or the person who is responding to the questionnaire. It deals with the feelings, attitudes, perceptions, etc. of the respondent. As I said,
Kevin, sir,
Yeah.
can you
Now,
please go ahead? How is the connection?
now it is okay. Can you see?
I can see, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I think everybody can see. I'll do one thing. I will stop the video, my video, so that you can listen to me.
But we
Okay.
need to screen share, no, sir? You want
That I
to?
will do. That I will do. But my video, this
Yes, sir.
so that
When you share screen, any which ways, your video is not going to be seen.
I see. Let me try.
Yeah, just share screen or
Yeah.
we'll come to a conclusion.
Kavita, tell sir to share screen and only video.
Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes,
Yes,
very
sir.
well, sir.
Yes, sir.
You can see.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'll continue.
Sir, can we start from the previous slide?
Previous slide. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Right. This one. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what is important is the conceptualization of the study means the identification of the variables and their relationships. Because the questionnaire contains questions about some variables. So what are the variables? How to frame the question that we are going to see. That is the content of the questionnaire. We are seeking information about different types of variables related to the study. As I said, the variables may be objective or it may be subjective. Objective means it is relating to the status of the person, the visible status of the person like gender, residential status, marital status, and they can be easily verified. Whereas the subjective variables are the feelings and attitudes and perceptions which cannot be easily verified by the investigator. But we have to some or other get the true feelings, true perceptions. There are some methods. We will study that. How to find out the true feelings and attitudes and perceptions. This is the challenge in the questionnaire preparation. Getting the subjective variables, getting the truth about the subjective variables is a serious challenge as regards the preparation of the questionnaire. Subjective variables will have to be operationally defined and they have to be measured. They have to be measured. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go
Yes,
on.
sir. We can hear you. Yeah.
Because the video is not there, so I will not know when you are not. If when you are not hearing, just tell me. Okay.
Right, sir.
Okay. So the subjective variables are they have to be operationally defined and they have to be measured. This is what we are going to study in the rest of the presentation. How to operationally define a variable, what is a variable, how to define a variable, and how to measure the variables, because we require some quantitative measures to do the data analysis. The next step is doing data analysis. So tomorrow you are going to study about data analysis. So to do the data analysis, we require quantitative data. We require numbers. So the variables have to be converted into numbers. That is called measuring the variables. And that we have to do it very carefully. Okay, so let us start with the operational definition. A variable is a concept, which means it is something very broad. And it may have subdivisions or it may have what we call dimensions. These dimensions are the sub-themes or components of the variables. I know you will not you may not perhaps fully understand what I'm saying now, but when I give you an example later on, next slide, I'll be giving an example, then you will understand it better. Now just remember the words which I'm introducing. Concept, dimensions. Dimensions are the subdivisions of the concept. Then you have elements. Each dimension may have several subdivisions. These are the elements known as the elements. So we have three things. One is the concept, which is very broad. They have subdivisions called dimensions. Then you have subdivisions of the dimensions called elements. And these are the measurable aspect or features of each dimension. Okay, so what we are going to do is the operational definition will break down the concept into observable and measurable behaviors or elements and group them into different categories. You will understand it only with examples. These are all abstract now for you. We'll take the example straight away and then you will be able to understand. So in simple words, we start with the concept. subdivide it into dimensions, and each dimension will again be subdivided into elements, and these elements will be measured. This is a graphical representation. The concept will be subdivided into D1, D2. D1 may have E1, E2, E3, etc. D2 may have only one element, sometimes called E1, and so on. Let's take an example. There was a study done by one of my students, was the adoption of e-learning in higher educational institutions. This was the topic of the study. The subject was e-learning, the adoption of e-learning in higher educational institutions. So in our higher educational institutions, are we really adopting e-learning procedures, e-learning techniques, e-learning methodologies? Because India is one of the largest software manufacturing and exporting countries, but are we using softwares of e-learning in our higher educational institutions? If not, why? So this was the study. We found that the problem was, we found that we are not using it to very much extent, except for the PowerPoint presentation, nothing else we are doing. So why is that happening, and so on? This was the topic of the study. You know what is e-learning? E-learning is a collection of, see what is noted in red ink. It's a collection of learning methods using digital technologies. And you know the concept of e-learning, so I don't have to waste time on that. Now we come to the variables and dimensions example. So we want to know whether e-learning is happening in higher educational institutions. So our concept here is e-learning, and that e-learning concept has to be subdivided into different dimensions. First of all, are we aware of e-learning? So e-learning awareness. E-learning is a very broad concept. E-learning awareness, that is one concept. Then awareness about what? Awareness about hardwares, softwares, ICT tools, benefits, misconceptions, etc. So e-learning awareness is a variable. We can say it is a variable, and the sub dimensions are the hardware, softwares, ICT tools, etc. So we do not ask a question, are you aware of e-learning awareness? That question will be foolish. The person will not be able to answer that. So our question will be not on the variable, our question will be on the dimension, not even on the dimensions. In fact, our variables, our questions will be on the elements. So these dimensions will be subdivided into elements next. So now let us see the variables and dimensions. E-learning awareness, the dimensions are hardwares, awareness about the hardware, softwares, ICT tools, etc. Second one is, are we ready? Okay, we are aware. Second one is, are we ready? E-readiness, that is the next variable. Again, what does it mean? What are the dimensions? What are subdivisions? E-readiness means, do we have the connectivity? Are we having the ability? Do you have the ability to use e-learning tools? Do you have the culture of using e-learning tools? Is the content available in the internet for e-learning? So only if these things are there, we can say that we are ready. So are you following what I'm saying? So e-readiness is a very broad concept. If you ask the question, are you e-ready? Nobody will be able to say, because what does it mean? E-readiness, what does it mean? So that has to be subdivided. So this is operational definition. So we are defining the content of e-learning into first variables and dimensions. So e-readiness means connectivity, ability to use e-learning tools, culture, content, etc. Then you are ready. Okay, now comes the adoption. E-learning adoption. Again, that is a variable. It has to be subdivided into dimensions. So if you want to adopt in your institution e-learning techniques, you require, you have to have possession of the e-learning resources. You need to have computers, you need to have the connectivity. So you should have the possession, you should be using them, because you may have the possession, nobody will be allowed to use it. The students may not be allowed to use it. Everything will be there, but the management will not allow the students to use it. Then you will not have adoption. So adoption means possession first of all, then using the permission to use it. And what are the levels of adoption? Are we just using PowerPoint presentation, or are we going for other advanced softwares? So this is an example of how we operationally define a concept into variables and dimensions. Now we will take the dimensions and divide it into elements. elements example. Let us take the previous concept of e-readiness. We have already seen that there is a dimension. In the previous slide, we have already seen that e-readiness is a variable or a concept which has a one of the dimensions is the ability to use e-learning tools. So here again, we should not ask a question on, are you able to use e-learning tools? The person may not be able to answer that because the dimension can be subdivided further into elements. These tools, ability to use e-learning tools, what are the tools there involved? See here, those are the elements. Skill in using word processing software such as Word, skill in internet browsing, skill in sending and receiving emails, skill in participating in social networking through Facebook. So we have here the concept or the variable, you have the one of the dimensions, and the dimensions are again subdivided into elements, and these are the observable, measurable part. The elements are the observable part, the measurable part. Now you can ask questions. Do you have the ability to use do you have the skill of internet browsing? What is your skill in internet browsing? Is it very low? Is it very high? Or is it medium? So you can have different types of questions. So the questions should be asked on the elements and not on the concept. So we have to operationally define the concept, subdivided into dimensions and elements, and the questions will be framed based on the elements. So only then you will get the correct answer. This is an example regarding e-learning. Whatever be your topic of study, whatever be your subject of study, you will have to find out. You will have to find out. Similarly, you will have to find out what are the variables to be studied, subdivide them into dimensions, and subdivide them into elements. I'll give you further examples so that you will get used to this three concepts. So remember, concept, dimension, elements. Very important. In fact, we have to prepare a table. I'll show you a table later. Again, another example, e-readiness. The concept is e-readiness. One of the dimensions is e-learning culture. One of the dimensions is e-learning culture. So again, don't ask the question, do you have e-learning culture? It doesn't make any sense. You will not be able to answer that question. So we have to define this culture, e-learning culture. What does it mean? We have to subdivide it into elements here. So what is a culture? We have to define that. The elements. The elements are perceptions and attitudes regarding e-learning versus traditional learning. If a person has a positive perception, a positive attitude towards e-learning, we say he has an e-learning culture. If he has a positive attitude and a perception towards traditional learning, then we say he does not have an e-learning culture. So we have defined what is meant by e-learning culture. That is a perception or a positive perception and attitude towards e-learning against traditional learning. But how do you find out whether this person has a positive attitude, positive perception? That is a challenge. So we know we have defined what is e-learning culture, but how do we find out whether this person has a positive perception or attitude towards e-learning? That is a challenge. Because social science study always requires study about different types of perceptions and attitudes. Whatever be your topic of study, there will be some questions about the perceptions and attitudes. So how do you find out these perceptions and attitudes? The simplest way is we give them some statements, some innocent statements. One example, use of IT tools enhances the quality of teaching. We're just giving an innocent statement. Use of IT tools enhances the quality of teaching. And we ask him, do you agree with this? We give a scale, fully agree, partly agree, neutral, disagree, fully disagree. So we give a scale, agreement. Do you agree with the statement? So we ask him whether he is fully agreeing, partly agreeing, and so on. Similarly, we put another statement, another innocent statement. Face-to-face classroom teaching is an effective method of teaching. Again, we ask him to agree on a scale. It is difficult to switch over to an IT-enabled teaching learning process. An innocent statement, and we give a agreement scale. Adoption of IT tools in teaching learning has become a fashion. And that means it is not useful, it is simply a fashion. Everybody is using it, so I am also using it. It's a fashion. Use of IT tools promotes student-centric learning. Okay, see here. So if you ask a person, do you have a positive attitude towards e-learning culture? He will not be able to answer. He will not give the true answer. What he says yes or no, that will not be the true answer. So here, look at this statement. Some of them are favoring e-learning. Some of them are favoring traditional learning. So if a person agrees to the first statement, use of IT tools enhances the quality of teaching, then if he agrees to that, he has a positive attitude towards e-learning. The second is a statement which is favoring traditional learning. So if he disagrees to that, face-to-face teaching, classroom teaching is effective method of teaching. If when a person disagrees to that statement, he is favoring e-learning. It is difficult to switch over to an IT-enabled teaching learning process. If he disagrees to that statement, he is favoring e-learning. So based on his agreement to these statements, when he agrees to the positive statements and when he disagrees to the negative statements, that is when he agrees to the statements supporting e-learning and when he disagrees to the statements supporting traditional learning, we can find out, we can measure because we have given a scale 5, 4, 3, 2, etc. So we can measure his perception towards very quantitative. We can measure out of 25, out of 20, what is his perception, measurement, attitude towards the e-learning culture. So this is the method of finding out his perception or attitude towards e-learning. So that is one of the elements. So this finally, again coming back, we have a concept, we will have several dimensions, each dimension will have elements, and the elements may be perceptions or maybe something else. So our questions will always be based on the elements. Okay. Now here there's a related concept. Two words are related, two words. Sometimes we speak of, so we introduced three words there. I introduced three words. One is the concept, then dimension, element. Similarly, I'm going to introduce two other terms which are normally used in with regard to the preparation of the questionnaire. It is called constructs and items. You might have come across these terms. Perceptions, attitudes, psychological traits are not directly observable. We cannot see them. These are latent variables. We call them latent variables, hidden variables, and these are sometimes called constructs. So these perceptions, attitudes, and psychological traits are latent variables and sometimes called constructs. Example, the perception of an employee towards job satisfaction. He is an employed person. What is his perception regarding his job satisfaction? Or the attitude of a consumer towards a product. There are different products in the market. So what is the attitude of a consumer towards a particular product? Organizational commitment of an employee. That is a psychological trait, organizational commitment of an employee. So these are all important, but unfortunately, they are all latent. So we call them constructs. So how do we measure these constructs? How do you identify and measure these constructs? What is the organizational commitment of a person? What is the attitude of a consumer? What is the job satisfaction, the extent of job satisfaction of a person? So how do we measure this? For that, these constructs are assessed and measured with the help of several statements, as we have seen earlier, both positive and negative, regarding the different aspects of the construct. Whatever be the construct, supposing this job satisfaction, we give them different statements, both positive and negative, about job satisfaction, and we will try to assess the construct. These statements are referred to as items of the construct. So we have a construct and we have maybe 5 items in the construct. We have 7 items in the construct, or sometimes 20 items in the construct. So using these items, statements, we will be measuring the construct. So constructs and items are two words which are related, which are used in the preparation of the questionnaire. And in your questionnaire, whatever be your study, in your questionnaire, definitely you will be requiring some constructs and some items. And also suitable rating scales should be given along with the statements. It may be a Likert scale for agreement or an itemized rating scale We'll study it later, a little later. We'll be studying about Likert scale and itemized rating scale. Anyway, a scale will be used along with the statements. Each statement will have a scale to measure the extent of agreement or disagreement and so on. I'll give an example of a attitude towards e-learning. We have just now seen. So that can be called a construct. It can also be called as a construct. Attitude towards e-learning. These are the items, the statements which I gave you earlier. The 5 statements which I gave you earlier are the items, and the scale may be used, an agreement scale or some other scale will be used. Okay. Now, to understand it better, the concept of the operational definition. Remember what we are studying? What we are studying is how to operationally define a concept. We are trying to understand how to operationally define a concept. So the concept has dimensions and elements. So here I am giving you a concept called job satisfaction. All of us are familiar with that. Many of you who are listening to this may be already employed somewhere. So all of you know what is a job satisfaction. Job satisfaction is a concept which is very broad, which has got many, many subdivisions. So we will try to find out what are the dimensions and elements of the concept called job satisfaction. I would request the participants to think of some of the dimensions and elements of the job satisfaction. If possible, note down. What do you think are the dimensions and elements? Something. Anyway, you'll be able to say. One, I will give a salary, for example. Salary. So similarly, you can note down. Before I show you the dimensions and elements, you can just think of, because it's a very simple concept. Job satisfaction, very familiar concept, simple concept. So what are things that gives you job satisfaction? What are the things that give you job satisfaction? Those are the dimensions. The things that give you job satisfaction are the dimensions. And then each dimension again will have to be subdivided into elements. And the elements will be measured with the help of statements, positive and negative statements. Okay, so since we do not have much time, I will give you the dimensions and elements. Let us look at the dimensions and elements. Work. In the job satisfaction, the most important aspect is the work itself. You are doing some work. That is a dimension. Okay, that is a dimension. But you cannot directly ask questions about that. So that work can be subdivided into different subdivisions. Say nature of the work. What is the nature of your work? That has an influence on your job satisfaction. What is the pressure of the work? So the nature of the work, the pressure of the work, the ease of doing the work. If it is very easy to do the work, you will be satisfied. If it is difficult to do the work, you may not be easily satisfied. So these are the elements which are components of the dimension called work, and that is going to affect job satisfaction. The work environment is a very important element of the dimension work. Next one. Relation with the superior. Anyway, in any job environment, you will have superiors. Definitely, you will have superiors and also subordinates, superiors, colleagues. Superior is a very important person. So that relation with the superior is something which is going to affect your job satisfaction, and that is a dimension. And that dimension, so we cannot ask you a question, what is your relationship with the superior? That question is meaningless. What is your relationship with the superior? That doesn't give out the correct. So the relation with the superior involves these things: the guidance received from him, the recognition received from him, the supervision received by him from him, the comfort level of your relationship. Now you can ask questions on this. These are the elements. So these are the elements on which you can ask questions. And how do you ask questions? So this relation with the superior is a construct. These are the items. So you will have to frame statements, positive and negative statements about guidance received, recognition, supervision, comfort level. So you will have to frame questions, frame statements, positive and negative statements about the guidance, recognition, supervision, etc. So all those statements together, when you are measuring the statements, you will get the measure of the construct called relation. So dimension is otherwise called construct, element is otherwise called items. So dimensions and elements can also be known as constructs and items. Social status of the job, another important dimension which is going to affect your job satisfaction. The social status means the society's perception of the job, your self-assessment of your status. Next one, participation in decision making. Are you just a robot there working and doing some work, or are you really participating in the decision making? That is going to influence your job satisfaction. That is the dimension, and there are elements there. Participation in the decisions, communication of the decisions, communication of suggestions. If you have some suggestions and you are giving the suggestion, is it acceptable to them, etc. Next one, monetary aspect, very important. The monetary aspect is the dimension. The elements are salary, perquisites, promotion prospects, etc. These are easy to understand. Grievance redressal, another important dimension. Grievance redressal is another important dimension. The elements are availability of grievance redressal, effectiveness of the grievance redressal, fairness of the grievance redressal, etc. Let us convert it in terms of construct and items. For example, let us take a construct, the dimension relation with superior, we can call it a construct, and it is relation with the superior. The elements, we can call the elements as items, and with regard to the elements, we are going to formulate certain statements, positive and negative statements. Look here. My superior shows a great deal of recognition for a job well done. It's a statement. It deals with the element recognition. Deals with the element recognition. My superior shows a great deal of recognition for a job well done. I am satisfied with the guidance received from my superior. It relates to the element called guidance. I feel my superior is closely monitoring my work. Deals with the supervision, monitoring my work. I am dissatisfied with the leadership that I am getting from my superior. I am dissatisfied with the leadership. So the first three are positive statements. The fourth one is a negative statement. So a person who is disagreeing with the statement has a positive attitude towards the relation with the superior. My relation with the superior is official in nature. That is regarding the comfort level. The last element is the comfort level of the relationship. My relation with the superior is official in nature. That means it is not very comfortable. I am very official. I don't have any personal relation with him. So it is a negative statement. In fact, it has to be disagreed. Only then we can say that he has a good relation with the superior. I think we have understood what is meant by a dimension, element, or construct and items. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Now we can hear you.
Okay. I'm going to continue my presentation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we are going to study the next aspect, which is the measurement of the variables. The measurement, we have studied the operational definition. We are going to study now the measurement of the variables, how to measure the variables. Okay, measurement of the variables. Naturally, for measurement, we require scales. Any measurement requires scale. The scale may be of different types. We have here two types of scales. One is called the rating scale. The other is called the ranking scale. You may be familiar with the ranking scale, but may not be very familiar with the rating scale. I start with the rating scale, then move on to the ranking scale. Rating scale. There are different types of rating scale. The first is a very simple scale, which is called the dichotomous scale. the dichotomous scale. Yes or no? Are you married? Yes or no? Are you a postgraduate? Yes or no? Do you have a PhD? Yes or no? So that is a dichotomous scale. We don't use it much, but still. Uh, Second is called a category scale, where the respondent is put into different categories like male, female, urban, rural, semi-urban, and so on. So here we will be measuring this. We'll be giving numbers in our questionnaire. Yes will be given as number 1 and number 2. No will be given as 2, or the other way around. Male may be 1, female may be 2, urban 1, rural 2, 3, etc. Then we have a very important scale called Likert scale. It is the name of the person who gave the scale is Likert. Therefore, it is known as the Likert scale. It's an agreement to statements on a 5-point scale. You're all familiar with this. Fully agree. 5 means fully agree, partly agree, neutral, disagree, fully disagree. This is the 5-point scale. Then we have a composite scale or a composite score. We can calculate a composite score from a composite scale. So from now onwards, we are going to see some new scales. Likert scale is familiar to many of you. Composite scale, several statements can be used to measure a particular attitude or perception. We have seen that. A construct has got several items, several statements. So several statements will be used to measure a particular concept, particular perception. Each statement represents a particular aspect of that domain. By summing up the respondents' responses to the multiple statements in the scale, the attitude can be measured. Supposing there are 10 statements, each statement will be measured using a 5-point scale. So what is the scale response given by each person? By summing up the response for all the 5 statements or 6 statements or 10 statements, we get the total score, which is known as the composite score. I'll show you an example, then it becomes easier for you. For example, job satisfaction. Let us look at this very carefully. The example which we took a little earlier, relation with the superior. We are trying to find out a composite score. It is a construct. The relation with the superior is a construct. It has got 5 items, 5 statements dealing with 5 elements. Likert scale, agreement scale. First one, my superior shows a great deal of recognition. So somebody, one respondent has given 5 for that. That means he fully agrees with that. Second statement, he has given 4. That means he partly agrees with that. The third statement he has given is neutral with regard to that. So it is 3. The fourth one, I am dissatisfied with the leadership that I am getting. So this is a negative statement. He has actually disagreed with that statement. That means he has given 2 as answer. He has disagreed, which means because it is a disagreement to a negative statement, the score has to be reversed to partly agree. So we put it as reverse score becomes 4. So he has actually disagreed. He has given 2. 2 means disagree, partly disagree. Partly disagree to a negative statement means partly agree to a positive statement. So the score becomes 4. My relation with the superior is official in nature, which is a negative statement. He does not agree with that. He has disagreed with that. He has given 2, which means he has partly disagreeing with that, which has to be reversed into partly agree, and therefore the score becomes 4. This is an important step which you will have to do. The researchers will have to be careful about this. When you have negative statements and there is a the score has to be reversed before you're doing your data analysis. So what is the total score here? 20. So the total score, that is the composite score, the maximum
Sir, we cannot hear you.
Hello, Kevin sir, we cannot hear you. Hello. Hello, Kevin sir.
There is an issue with sir's network. We will get back to you. Just give us 2-3 minutes, participants. Yes, sir, we can see you now.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
कविता अपने एंड से प्रॉब्लम है कि सर के लैपटॉप में वहाँ पे अपना यहाँ प्रॉपर है ना
Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, we can see the screen.
Okay. Right. So what we were trying to understand is, so the composite score. We have created a composite score using a construct and the items, different items.
1.5 मिनट में कट कर दूंगा
Okay.
2 मिनट से ज़्यादा नहीं नो प्रॉब्लम्स एंड कैंसिल भी करना पड़े तो दैट इज फाइन
We are moving to the another scale called the semantic differential scale, which is also known as a numerical scale. Semantic differential scale or a numerical scale. Bipolar. So here what we do is we take bipolar attributes. Bipolar attributes are identified at the extremes of the scale. So about a product, supposing we are studying about a product, we say the two extremes are either useful or useless. The respondents are given a scale like this. They are asked to measure it. Their attitude is indicated on a semantic space. Sometimes you give a space there, 7 spaces are given, or you give 7 numbers are given there, satisfied, dissatisfied, and so on. So he will take, if he is satisfied, fully satisfied, he will take 7. If he is partly satisfied, he may take 6 or 5, and so on. Or the appropriate space there. Normally, nowadays we use the numerical scale. So the second one is more popular. The numerical scale is more popular. The numerical scale. And this can be used for, so it can be a 5-point scale, it can be a 7-point scale, or it can be even 9-point scale or 10-point scale. And usually it is used for measuring different qualities of a product or a person. Supposing you are studying about a person, your superior, or your teacher, or some other person. So we can say the two extremes are helpful and unhelpful, and the helpfulness of the person can be measured by either a 5-point scale or a 7-point scale or a 3-point scale or a 4-point scale. Whatever you want, you can use the scale. Only Likert scale is a 5-point scale because it is given by Likert as a 5-point scale. These scales are devised by us. Therefore, we can give as many points as you want, as the researcher or investigator wants. The friendliness of a person can be measured on a 7-point scale. The cheerfulness of a person can be measured in a 5-point scale, and so on. Now we come to another type of scale called itemized rating scale. In the previous scale, we had just given numbers 5, 7, or 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What does the 7 mean? What does the 6 mean? Or what does the 5 mean? We do not know. That is assumed. So a qualified person, an educated person will be able to know what that 7 or 6, or he will be able to make the distinction between 7, 6, 5, and 4. But not so educated or qualified person or respondent may not be able to make such a distinction. In such a case, we use what is called an itemized rating scale, where it is a 5-point scale or a 7-point scale with the descriptions, with anchors. We say what does each number mean. 1 means very dissatisfied, 2 means dissatisfied, 3 means neither satisfied nor dissatisfied, and so on. So 5 means very satisfied. So the number is clearly defined with the description. It is called an itemized rating scale. Now, we can have two types of scales. One is
Okay, sir. We can hear you.
Sir is having issues with network again. Till sir gets back, if participants have any questions, you can put it. We will try to answer it before he comes back. There is a question about how many days webinar this is. This is a 5-day webinar. And someone has asked a question about our questionnaires used in the science research areas also. Yes, in science also we are using the questionnaire pattern where we will have to have questions. Only if it is primary data, it is collected from the people. But in other cases, you could have parameters. So those parameters will work as a questionnaire. There is one question which asks, if any questionnaire is available online, do we still need the permission from the author, and what is the right way? There are certain ready-made questionnaires for which you will require permissions from the author, but basic questions, every time you do not require to take up that. There is a question about certificate of the seminar. It will be given after you attend all the 5 days of the seminar and you fill in the feedback forms. One more question is asked about SPSS. We have not picked up SPSS in this webinar. We will pick it up some other time in some other webinar, hopefully.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you now.
Okay, I'll continue the presentation without the video.
Yes, sir, yes, sir. Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Right. Okay, itemized rating scale. We were speaking about the itemized rating scale. So two types of scales I was saying. I was mentioning about two types of scales. One is the balanced scale with a neutral point. So you can have a 5-point scale or a 7-point scale, or you can also have a 4-point scale. So a 4-point scale means there on the screen you have given a 4-point scale. So there is no neutral point there. It's not at all satisfied, somewhat satisfied, moderately satisfied, very much satisfied. So it is called an unbalanced scale without a neutral point, this 4-point scale or 6-point scale or 8-point scale. Whereas a 5-point or a 7-point scale will be a balanced scale with a neutral point. So you can have either of them. naturally question arises as to which is better. Sometimes people may ask which scale is better. Should you have a balanced scale or should you have a unbalanced scale? Each has its own advantages and disadvantages. Say, for example, if it is an unbalanced scale, if it is a balanced scale, let us take a balanced scale first. There is no neutral point. Therefore, the person has to think and tick correctly. Whereas if it is a balanced scale with a neutral point, if he does not know the answer and if he is not very sure of how to respond, he will naturally tick the middle one, neutral, or neither satisfied nor dissatisfied, because he is unable to decide whether he is satisfied or dissatisfied. So he will put it as 3, which is not a fair answer. That neither satisfied nor dissatisfied is not a fair answer. So he would be either satisfied or dissatisfied to some extent. So a fairer answer would be either 1 or 2 or 4 or 5. But a person who is unable to decide is likely to put the answer as 3. So you may not get a true answer. So that is the disadvantage of a balanced scale. Therefore, you give an unbalanced scale. Then he will have to think and decide in favor of either 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. That is an advantage. But then analysis, when you're doing analysis, you are doing analysis based on certain statistical tools. And most of the statistical, whether it is parametrical tools or non-parametric tools, they assume a normal distribution. A normal distribution, it is assumed that the data are normally distributed. So there, this unbalanced scale is not normally distributed because there's no middle point there, whereas a balanced scale is normally distributed. So statisticians may prefer a balanced scale rather than an unbalanced scale. And that doesn't matter to some extent. Nowadays, we can go ahead with the neutral scale or unbalanced scale or balanced scale. It's up to you. You can decide which scale you want. We move on to another. This is an example. How would you rate the following product features? Use the following.
Dr. Kevin's phone just came. His network is giving a lot of issues. So what we thought as organizers was that I will just address some of the questions that we have, and sir will share the PPT with everyone, and we will share it with the other participants through the WhatsApp. Okay, so you can fill up the feedback form by then. which has been already posted in your YouTube channels and also in the Zoom channel. We will give you 5 minutes more. If you have any questions, you can ask, or else we will go ahead with the vote of thanks. There's a question about, can you give examples of parameters? Now, parameters are like whatever items that are there that you would like to measure through the, for the research work. So that becomes a parameter. Any aspect that you want to study in any research requires certain parameters which will define whether something is good or bad. Now, in such a situation, you require these parameters. Now, if you would see many reports that are there on World Bank reports or WHO reports, everything has certain parameters that are defined. I cannot just simply say that the city is good or the city is clean or that the ease of doing business is proper. A very good example of parameters would be ease of doing business also, where you find that there are different ways in which countries or economies are assessed about the ease of doing business. Parameters like how easy is it to open the business, how easy is it to start the business, how easy is it also importantly nowadays to close the business. So such things are parameters. I hope it gives your answer. There's one question about which book to use for scaling measurement and measurement of variables and questionnaire. There are a lot of good books on research methodology. We will see if we can share the list of books. You will find everything available in that. We will try to put it in the WhatsApp group if it is possible. In this webinar, we are also covering R in next 2 days. And on the last day, we will be covering plagiarism and citation. These questions are coming from Dr. Sana. There's one question from Tanushri, which asks about, is it better to use a 4-point scale which avoids a neutral view or Likert scale? It is always better to use a scale which is able to give you some clarity in the opinion rather than a Likert scale. Generally, it is found that people prefer to fall into the category where they're not giving any opinion this way or that. So Likert scales, therefore, are not preferred many times. If now for the question answer session, we will finish the question answer session now. Pitaria sir, are we there?
Yes.
Yes. So can we go ahead with the vote of thanks?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Kavita. Participants, we know that there were certain problems in the process of presentation. Leaving this little difficulty aside, let me propose vote of thanks. At the outset, let me first thank Dr. Kevin. Sir, it was indeed a wonderful and enriching session. We have really learned a lot from it. Thank you very much, sir, for taking out time from your busy schedule. I also take this opportunity to thank our management who are always there for us for everything and anything that we need. I thank our principal who is always encouraging us to organize such webinars. I thank all the three vice principals, Mr. Vijay Suchak, Professor Mosmi Datta, and Dr. Mona Mehta are always providing necessary support to organize such programs. My special thanks to Dr. Varsa Ainapure and Dr. Kavita Kalkoti, who took the lead to make sure that this program happened. I also wish to express my sincere thanks to the team from our non-teaching staff, students, volunteers, more specifically Josh, Jimit, Parth, Bhumika, and other, and the EPS team of Krishna Kumar, Radha, and Tapas. Last but not the least, I thank all the participants who made this webinar a big success. I request you all to fill the feedback form before leaving the webinar. See you all tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. Till then, stay home, stay safe. Thank you.
Participants, please fill up the feedback form before you leave the webinar.